Anyway, so I feel that I get almost as offended as Eminem did when someone said to him in an interview that nothing rhymes with orange.
I've heard you say that you bend the words.
Yeah, it's just in the enunciation of it. Like people say that the word orange doesn't rhyme with anything. And that kind of pisses me off because I can think of a lot of things that rhyme with orange.
What rhymes with orange?
He got like personally offended. Well, that's kind of how I am. You know, you can call me ugly, you can call me whatever, but you start dissing the 12 key model, I'm going to get kind of offended. I'm like, no, you don't. You're going to get a paper written. Ugh, don't make me write a mean paper that has math and music theory in it, because I'll do it, man. I'll do it. What's up, guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video, I want to talk about the Fight Club. And what's the number one rule of the Fight Club? The number one rule is you do not talk about the Fight Club under any circumstances whatsoever. The only difference is that today's video is going to be about the 12 key model, the model that I've been teaching, the model that I've always subscribed to my whole entire life. I've been doing this music stuff for like 30 years now. Always been a 12 key guy. It's not the same model that you're going to learn if you go to school. You know, if you go to college, they're going to teach you the other model, the 24 key model, otherwise known as the 30 key model. If you want to learn about what that model is all about, I made a video. It's called the 30 key model. Check it out. I'll put a link to that one as well. That's the model that I do not teach. I teach the 12 key model. Now this is a nerdy thing. It's a nerdy argument. People that argue about this stuff on the internet are just nerds that have no life, like myself. You know, there's like these certain scenarios that you're going to encounter where it's just going to be a conflict. You know, it's like if you're trying to subscribe to this 12 key model and then everything out there is being like, no, there's major keys and minor keys. The 24 key model is the way, you know. There's going to be these certain things that you come to where you're going to be like, wait a minute, something's not making sense. Is it 12? Or like, it doesn't make sense because the two models conflict with each other. This is very specific stuff, and a lot of people don't understand this stuff. But I'm not going to be talking about the nerdy stuff here in today's video. This video is for all the people that don't understand this argument. This video is for all the people that don't care about this argument. This video is for all the people that have attempted to watch a video like the Fundamental Misunderstanding Western Music Theory video that I'm going to link you to. And they watched it and they had no clue what was being discussed there. Like, what's the problem? I don't even get it. If that describes you, if you don't understand what all this nerd stuff is about, that is what this video is for. Number one. This is all just on paper stuff. It makes zero difference to the listener how the music actually sounds. You could take this and apply it to any genre, any solo, any song, anything. You could take the most complex classical music that you've ever heard. You could take like a work from Bach, like a masterpiece, you know, and you could look at that masterpiece and you could analyze it. And you could do so from the 12 key model perspective, or you could do so from the 24 key model perspective. It's not going to change the masterpiece that has already been written. It's just the way that we go about analyzing this stuff. This is all just on paper. Number two, the 12 key model is simpler, and this is just my opinion. You know, when you say something simpler than something else, that's a matter of opinion. So this is just my opinion. The 12 key model is simpler than the 24 key model, in my opinion. But that does not mean that it's watered down at all. Not at all. Not one single bit is watered down about the 12 key model perspective of analyzing music theory. Let me show you some comments that I got. All right, so the comment is, a buddy of mine who was a music major, more from the classical-ish perspective, was taught that there are two main sounds, major and minor. He says this is why they have two types of keys, major and minor. Okay, coming from the 24 key model perspective. You see, this is music major type stuff. Not saying that person doesn't understand music theory. I'm just saying that they're coming from the 24 key model perspective. Let me read on. All right, so thinking of it this way allows all of the secondary dominants, etc. He tells me this becomes super important when analyzing classical music. As you said at the end of the video, this likely doesn't apply to rock, classic rock, etc. as much. Not true at all. This applies to everything. It doesn't matter if you're analyzing classical. It doesn't matter if you're analyzing whatever. He mentioned secondary dominants. Okay, you know, I have a bunch of songs where I analyze Beatles songs. They use secondary dominants all the time. The only difference is how we label stuff, right? So let me just give you a quick example. Key of C, right? You have your 7 notes for the key of C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Is a D major chord in key or out of key? It's out of key, right? Because it contains one note that is not part of the key. the key has 7 notes. Every key has exactly 7 notes. If a chord is played that contains one single note that is not part of those 7 notes, then that would be considered to be an out-of-key chord. Okay, what about a D dominant 7 chord? Again, it's an out-of-key chord because it contains one note. It only has to contain one note that is out of key. Again, it has that F sharp in there. All right, so what label does that D7 chord get? Is it a borrowed chord? Is it a secondary dominant chord? What label should we apply to that? And the answer is, I don't know. What comes next? You can't label something as a secondary dominant until you see what the next chord that comes immediately after it is. All right, we have a chord progression. It's C, D7, G, C. All right, cool. Now we have more context. We're in the key of C major. The D dominant 7 chord is an out-of-key chord because it contains one single note that is not part of the key. It is then followed by a chord that is a fifth below it, therefore functioning as a dominant chord would. So it gets the label of a secondary dominant. Very simple. That's how secondary dominants work. I didn't have to be operating from, a 24-key perspective to come up with that simple analysis. The 12-key model just simply says, is that in key or is that out of key? That's it. The problem is, with the 24-key model, key is not clear, whereas the 12-key model, key is clear as day. We have 12 notes. That's all we have in our Western music system. Start on any one of the 12 notes and then play the major scale. The major scale has been deemed the 1. Out of all the scales that you could possibly play, the major scale has been deemed the 1 that determines key signatures. So start on any one of the 12 notes and then play the major scale, which is just a sequence of whole steps and half steps, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The resulting 7 notes gives you your key. That's the 12-key model in a nutshell. Because you have 12 potential starting notes, you have 12 potential sets of 7 notes that make up your 12 keys. Now that was a pretty straightforward example, but things tend to get confusing once we start talking about minor keys. So let's now look at the key of A minor. All right, under the 12-key model, the key of A minor, key of C major, makes no difference. It's the same key as far as I'm concerned, Key of A minor, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are your 7 notes. They're the same 7 notes as the key of C major. We're just now starting on the note A. All right, same 7 notes. Question, is an E major chord in key or out of key? Under the 12-key model perspective, this would be labeled as an out-of-key chord because it contains one single note that is not part of the key. If you look at the notes of an E major chord, E, G sharp, B, there's no G sharp in the key of A minor. Therefore, under the 12-key model perspective, this gets the label of out of key. We can't say if it's a secondary dominant chord yet. We don't know what else is happening. We need more context. But what we can say is if we're in the key of A minor and an E major chord comes up, then it's an out-of-key chord. Under the 24-key model, you're going to get a bunch of different answers for this one. Some people will be like, no, that's part of the key. You always have to take, anytime you're in the key of A minor, you take your 5th chord in the key of A minor, A, B, C, D, E, which normally would be a minor chord, make that major, and that's where your G sharp comes from, which results in a leading tone. That's your harmonic minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp. And then you would say, oh, okay, so a G sharp is in the key of A minor. They'll be like, yeah, like in the key of A minor, like you could have a G, you could have a G sharp, it really depends. And then you kind of ask some more questions. They'll be like, yeah, you know what, then you got that melodic minor scale thing. Sometimes you even have an F sharp in there, raise that 6th scale degree up. And then it'll be like, well, does that mean a D major chord is also in the key of A minor? Because a D major chord contains an F sharp note, And they'll be like, that's a good question, huh? Yeah, just, I don't know, man, just play music, You don't get logical answers with that kind of stuff. You get a bunch of mixed answers. Not really good for communicating. Anyway, it's really just about describing things on paper, and everything is a yes or no logical type of answer. It's not watered down. It's simpler. The reason it's simpler is because when people are learning things, they need answers, Like if I'm trying to learn some stuff, I'm like, okay, if I do this, I'm always going to get this result. Cool, I know that. But if I'm trying to learn something, I'm like, if I do this, sometimes it gives me that result. Sometimes it gives me that result. Sometimes it gives me that result. I'm going to be confused. That's what the 24 key model does, but the 12 key model fixes all that stuff. The third thing, and this is kind of piggybacking off of the last one, if you're a guitar player, you're probably going to be learning some patterns in your life. You're going to probably be learning some chord shapes that you can move around. You're probably going to be learning some scale patterns that you can move around and stuff like that. Unless you're like a rare breed that says, you know what, I don't like scale patterns. I don't like memorizing any types of patterns. I'm going to learn the fretboard. I'm going to learn all the notes on the fretboard. I'm going to learn general music theory, and I'm just going to attack everything from knowing every single note that I play. You know, no pattern thinking whatsoever. If that describes you, man, you're a rare breed. That is a very, very difficult thing for a lot of guitar players to do. A lot of guitar players don't do that, though. A lot of guitar players were just like, oh, cool, you know, like pentatonic box. Oh, cool, I could play the same pentatonic box here, and now I'm in a different key. Awesome. I didn't even have to learn any notes on my fretboard in order to do that. That was cool. As a guitar player, most guitar players, you know, were pattern-based thinkers. Now, let's look at the key of C major spanned across the entire fretboard. All right, so this is your roadmap. If you wanted to solo in the key of C major, you would have to learn this roadmap. Most people would probably break this down into smaller connecting patterns, 3 patterns, 5 patterns, 7 patterns, a bunch of different ways to approach learning this big, complicated matrix of notes. But it's doable. We could do it, and we could do so by learning patterns. We don't necessarily need to learn all of the notes on our fretboard in order to do this. Now, let's go ahead and look at the fretboard for the key of A minor. Ready? As soon as I snap my fingers, the change is going to happen. Did you see it? Did you see how quickly that changed? You didn't even notice, did you? That's because the notes are exactly the same for the key of A minor. So if you're going about learning the fretboard using patterns, pentatonic boxes, 3-note per string patterns, whatever, if you're going about learning the fretboard using patterns, it would be a lot easier to just say, you know what, C major, A minor, same key. I only have to learn the patterns one time. I don't have to learn patterns for major and then different patterns for minor. I can just learn the patterns one time, done deal. The only difference between these patterns for C major or these patterns for A minor is where the tonic note is located. If it's in the key of C major, then you would just pay attention to where the C is. That's your home note. That's your tonic note. If this was in the key of A minor, you would just pay attention to where the A is. That's now your tonic note. That's your home note. Only difference. Otherwise, the patterns are completely identical. So for guitar players who are learning all these patterns in conjunction with a little bit of general music theory, that's another thing you got to keep in mind. There's general music theory that applies to all instruments, piano and everything else. And then you have guitar-specific theory, which is based on shapes. The cage system, the 5 pentatonic positions, the 3-note per string patterns, all these different pattern-based systems that apply specifically and only to the guitar. You know, if we're learning these patterns, you know, don't you think it's a lot easier just to be like, you know what, C major, A minor, same key. I only have to learn the patterns one time. The fourth thing is numbering. So you don't always have to number things from the major perspective. If you're playing in the key of A minor, if you're a 12-key believer like myself, you know that that's the same key as C major. It's just the A minor chord of the C major key is now being deemed home, is being deemed tonal center. People think that the 12-key model means that you have to number from the perspective of C major even if you're playing in the key of A minor. But that's not true. That's not true at all. Let me just read a comment real quick. All right, so this comment says, okay, yes, point taken. And from my little knowledge, moving from the 12-key model to the major-minor model involves bringing into the model our perceptions, such as happy versus sad, which immediately moves it away from a mathematical foundation. Not true at all. And gives the major-minor third interval a special exclusive status. Okay, this comment is just telling me, hey, I don't understand the 12-key model. I don't get it. Nothing against this person that wrote that comment. It was a very nice comment that they said, but they just don't get it, you know? So, key of C major. Key of C major, you have your 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So then each of those 7 notes represents a chord. This is the same for any of the 12 keys. They all work exactly the same way. First chord is always going to be major. Second and third are always going to be minor. Fourth and fifth are always going to be major. Sixth is going to be minor. Seventh is going to be a diminished chord, right? So you have 7 chords in a key. Any of those chords could potentially be the 1, the tonal center, the home chord. If you're going to make them the 1, then you just have to rearrange all of the other chords of those 7 chords and then number them accordingly. And the way that you do that is you number them according to the scale formula. So let's just use major and minor. Major and minor are the 2 big ones that everyone knows. So first perspective is Ionian. The numbering is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Your chords are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. That's C major. Play music like that, everything's going to sound happy. Take your 6th chord. That's your 6th perspective of the key. That's the Aeolian perspective of the key. It always goes Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. The Aeolian perspective of the key, make that your new 1 chord now. So now A minor is your 1 chord. You still have the rest of the chords because it's the same key, but now the ordering is just different. Now we have to apply numbers to those chords. And the way that we apply numbers to those chords is we use the Aeolian scale formula, otherwise known as the natural minor scale formula. That scale formula is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. You have your flat 3 there. That's what makes it sad. Your A minor chord is now home, but we're still in the same key. It's the same as that key, same as that chord, same as that notes, same patterns on the fretboard if you're soloing, same everything. It just sounds sadder now. And then the 5th and final thing, the 12-key model does not mean that everything is in a major key. As I said last time, it does not mean that. It just means that a major key is one of the 7 possible perspectives of a key. In the 24-key model, you have major keys, you have minor keys. That's all you have. If you ask 20 different people that follow that model what the specific definition of a minor key is, good luck getting a straightforward answer. Major keys, minor keys, and then you have these mysterious modes that no one can seem to figure out and understand and just define with a clear definition. That's the 24-key model. 12-key model, you just have keys. There's 12 of them. They're not major, they're not minor, they're just keys. That's it. The way we get these keys is we start on one of the 12 notes, and then we play the major scale because the major scale has been deemed the 1, the great holy major scale, which is just a sequence of intervals, whole notes, and half steps. That's it. There's nothing inherently special about the major scale, but it has been deemed the special scale that we use to determine key signatures, to determine the 7 notes that make up a key or a key signature or whatever. So the major scale is special in that way. But other than that, once you have your 7 notes, you play your starting note, you play your major scale, boom, there's my key. From those 7 notes, boom, I get my 7 chords. I can rearrange those chords in 7 different ways. And then I can number those rearranged chords according to the scale formula. The Ionian scale formula, the Dorian scale formula, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, 7 different possible scale formulas depending on the perspective. But it doesn't mean that everything's in a major key. Major key is just the Ionian mode perspective. Minor key is just the Aeolian mode perspective. But that's just 2 of the 7 possible perspectives. If you want to go and listen to some other perspectives, go and listen to some Santana. Listen to that "Oh my como va." That's Dorian, 100% Dorian. Great song. Dorian as it gets. Go listen to some AC/DC. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but probably like every AC/DC song ever written, Mixolydian. They're always using Mixolydian, It's not an Ionian perspective. It's not an Aeolian perspective. It's a Mixolydian perspective. A lot of their stuff is just in one single key, in one single grouping of 7 notes, but they're not making the 1st chord home. They're not making the 6th chord home. They're making the 5th chord home. They're playing in the Mixolydian perspective of a key. Anyway, so I feel that I get almost as offended as Eminem did when someone said to him in an interview that nothing rhymes with orange. He got personally offended. Well, that's kind of how I am. You can call me ugly, you can call me whatever, but you start dissing the 12-key model, I'm going to get kind of offended. I'm going to be like, no, you don't. You're going to get a paper written. Ugh, don't make me write a mean paper that has math and music theory in it, because I'll do it, man. I'll do it. I'm a nerd like that. But yeah, anyway, the 12 model, it's great. It's a great model. It's super. It's awesome. It's logical. It's mathematical. It provides answers for everything. It applies to every single genre of music, classical, jazz, whatever, man. 12-key model works for everything. That's all I wanted to say. That's my video. Thanks for watching.